edition of Veterans Forum. I'm your Navy Wave, Vietnam era. I did not go to Vietnam, but I was in during that time frame, 71 to 79. And I promised you when we were at the Bainbridge Island studio last time that we were going to have part 2 to the Korean War. We spent a lot of time with the guests talking about MIAs. The Korean War had truly a boatload of MIAs, and we spent a lot of time discussing that and how cold the weather was there and so forth. But we only got to briefly talk where our 3 veterans of the Korean War were stationed and what kind of action they saw. So we're not going to do a repeat of hometowns and when they went in, catch part 1. We're going to jump into what actually action they did see and their experiences, and hopefully we'll have time to learn what our 3 gentlemen are doing now. But let me reintroduce them. We have Dick Burkholder, who now is the commander of the 3rd District of the Peninsula. That's everything, Dick, from Gig Harbor to Port Angeles, is it not?
That's correct.
And then we have next to Dick, Birger Sather, who is our phenomenal service officer at the Paulsbo Post. So if you're needing help with compensation kinds of issues or anything veteran related and you live in North Kitsap, this is the man to see. Is it Thursdays?
Thursdays from 10 to 3.
At the Paulsbo Post. Quickly give the address of where the Paulsbo Post is at.
It's on Jensen Way, 17232 Jensen Way, at the Paulsbo Armory.
That's right. It's the Armory. So look for a flag. You can't miss it. And on Thursdays, what's the time frame? Like 10 to 2? Or
10 to 3.
10 to 3. Okay, great. And then my next guest is Mr. Robert Medley, who hopefully we'll get to talk a little bit about a memorial thing he has coming up. And he's our only Marine. You 2 gentlemen were Army, right? Actually, you're mixed. You did time in both branches, did you not, Robert?
Yes, I did.
Tell us a little bit about that. You first went into what, the Army or the Marine Corps?
The Army.
Uh-huh. And then you switched to the Marines?
Yes.
What made you do that?
Well, I was, when they dropped the bomb on August 6, 1945, I was 16, but I went to the draft board and told them I was 18 on the 7th of August.
Did your mama know that?
No.
I didn't think so.
Anyway, I finally wound up in the paratroopers in Japan in the 187th Parachute Infantry Regiment.
So how many years did you do in the Army?
3.
And then why did you switch to the Marines?
Well, obviously I missed World War II.
Right.
And whenever the Korean War came along, I wanted to help out. And I joined the reserve unit and asked to be put on active duty so I could get back in the 187. They said, no, we may be called up. So I just went down and joined the Marines and went to Parris Island for training.
Did you have broken service?
Yes.
Okay, see, I did as well. I mean, I was active Navy from 72, 75, and then I joined the reserves. And by God, they called me back up to duty in July of 77. And then I opted with the birth of my son in 79 just to get out. So many veterans do have broken service. It's not as uncommon as what you might think. Now, Dick, do I understand you brought some pictures in today?
No, I didn't. Birger did.
Oh, Birger did. Okay. Well, Birger, since you got the pictures, why don't we move to you and you tell us what was going on. Just hold them still. Our cameraman will get them, I'm sure. What kind of action did you see? And repeat again for the audience what years you were in Korea.
I was went to Korea after my basic training. I was drafted in 1950. And immediately went to Japan. I went to a special training for 1 month, and then we were sent over to Korea which was about July of 1951. And I was in the 31st Field Artillery Battalion, A Battery, and this was medium artillery, And
Now, when you say medium artillery, for those that are not experienced with military lingo, can you kind of expand on what that means?
medium artillery is 155 millimeter projectiles, and light artillery is 105 millimeter. And of course, if you get into heavy artillery, it's above that.
Right. And you did do that kind of thing then?
Yes, we did.
Okay. So let's see your pictures and tell us about what the pictures are about, because as most of my guests know, I'm legally blind and I have a limited vision here. So you tell the audience what we're looking at here.
This first picture is a picture of the 155 millimeter projectile. And they weigh about 100 pounds is the weight of a projectile.
And what is the range? You blast it off. How far do you anticipate it going?
The range is usually, if you're firing between 5 to 8 miles, I think they can go as high as 10 miles.
Oh, really? Okay, I learned something here today. This old Navy Wave learned something here. Okay.
But usually it's down in the 4 to 6 mile range. This is the howitzer that we used, the 155 howitzer, and you can see it's a large gun. And
is that something you did on a? I can't think you did it on a daily basis, but weekly. I mean, I'm sure you were always prepared to do whatever you needed to do.
When you're assigned into a firing battery, what we do, we have a crew of about 12, and we work in shifts.
Right.
And it takes about 5 or 6 people to for each shift. You have people with carrying the projectiles. You have a gunner, and you have to prepare the projectiles with fuses, and use a powder bag that goes in that you use to when you fire off the.
So this did take
shells.
some technical expertise.
Yes, it does. It's
Right.
You get a good crew together where you can fire these quite rapidly, and for the time we were there, of course, it was in a combat zone. Anytime
Whereabout was that for our audience that might be sort of familiar with Korea? Where was your location?
We originally were up around the what they call the Wasner Reservoir, Walkner Reservoir. I don't remember exactly how they pronounce it. And then we spent some time up in the mountains on the East Coast, and then we also moved across the whole front over to the West Coast.
And
That's in that 11th month period that I was in Korea.
Now, do I assume that someone was returning your fire?
Yes, you may assume that.
Yes, okay.
And
did you lose any men?
yes, we did. We had incoming artillery off and on. Most of the time, they were quite some distance away. But I was in the number one gun section, they call it, and we have 6 guns in our battalion, and they stagger them back and some forward and some. And we, as the first number one, we were the most forward. Had the most forward gun placement.
Oh,
and,
okay. So of course you were in a riskier position then, were you not?
And we did get incoming fire. We did receive a direct hit on our gun section with about 40% casualties.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And of course the gun was demolished, and so that was.
Did you sustain any injuries?
I was not. I was. I was on a crew that was off for that period of time, and we switch off every few hours. And fortunately, I was in a foxhole at that time. When
Well,
they
I'm
showed
sure,
up
and
on
many people were. Now, let's bounce over to Dick here and hear about his foxholes. So, what kind of action did you see, Commander?
By the time I reached Korea in early '53, it was nearly stalemated. The peace talks had been going on for some time, and the major units were jockeying for position so that they held the best ground available at the time the ceasefire was enacted. So I know something about Birger's artillery. I was an ordnance.
Oh, okay.
I was the platoon leader for the recovery platoon for 2nd Infantry Division. And our job was, when one of these was hit, it was our job to go police up whatever was left and evacuate it.
Now, can one assume that that could be really messy business?
I think that's an understatement.
I would think so. Yes. Yeah.
At one time, we had recovered 3 T-34 Russian tanks that were being used by the North Koreans, and it was our job to evacuate those tanks back to what they called the technical intelligence unit, and they would go through piece by piece through these tanks to determine their weaknesses as well as their areas of superiority.
Well, that's good intelligence. You need to know who you're fighting.
Yeah, of course, but it should have been known by then. This is a tank that Russia had used all through World War II.
Now, Robert, what about you? I mean, clearly you were there. Give us a brief Reader's Digest biography of your experiences during the Korean War.
Well, I was in the 14th replacement draft, which went into Korea in November of 1951. I was in the 1st Motor Battalion for a month, and I got a transfer to Charlie Company of the 7th Marines. And that was about the 1st of January 1952. And we went up on the line up in the high mountains that the artillerymen mentioned a while ago.
So you're hiking it up there, and you have your gun, and you're praying that Birger here knows what he's doing. Because you're going to be up close and personal. You're not going to be, what did you say, 6 to 10 miles away?
Well,
Yeah.
I have to say that without the artillery, the infantry would have had a much harder job. The artillery probably killed more of the enemy than we were able to kill
And
with
thank
rifles
God for
and
the
machine
artillery.
guns.
I'm sure your casualty
Yes.
list would have just exploded.
Right.
Yeah.
We were on the line for 80 days, and we came back down on March 18th, 1952.
Is it fair to say you men did a lot of praying while you were in Korea? I'm sure your mothers had to have been praying for you. Yeah.
My mother was convinced I'd never come back. But
Oh, really?
yes.
Yeah. Well, praise the Lord, you surprised her.
Yeah, I think she felt the same way.
Yeah. So when you were talking about artillery earlier, I was wondering, Burger, if you ever had times where you were running out of the appropriate ordnance to blast and you were a little concerned, was new supplies going to be coming in?
We had pretty good supply we had to keep track of our ammunition pretty careful, and whenever we reach a certain level, we just call in for more supplies, and we never did completely run out of any at any
Oh,
time.
that's good, because frequently you'll watch movies or hear veterans talk about the fear of running out, and that could be disastrous. Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that. What about you, Robert? Were you afraid of running out of shells?
No.
Okay, so you guys
No.
are well supplied.
Yes, well, we had M1s and light machine guns, so we had plenty of ammunition.
You know, a majority of the weaponry that was used in Korea was left over from World War II. Although we had newly designed equipment, very little of that ever arrived in Korea. We had 2 or 3 generations of tanks that had been built and were deployed in Europe and in units in the United States. But we had the old M4 medium tank, which was the same tank we started World War II with.
I understand there's some Vietnam veterans who claim that early in the war they were actually eating chow that was for World War IIers. Now, whether that was true or not, they swore to it. But
That shouldn't be uncommon.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Probably
I guess not.
sea rations.
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah. Now, Robert, how old were you when you went to Korea? And looking back many years later, what was the effect of your experiences in Korea on the rest of your life?
Well, I was 21. I was one of the older ones. Most of the Marines were 18 or 19. And I can't say that it had any measurable effect on my life. The experience was not as bloody as some of the actions were. The Chosin Reservoir, which that action occurred while I was in boot camp. So I missed that. I missed the Incheon landing, which was very notable.
Well, you must have had a sense of a can-do spirit. I mean, even though I never was in combat, I came away from my Navy experience realizing, oh, I can do it. I can do it. I might have to ask for help, but I can do it. I can accomplish whatever it is they put before me. So, well, thank you for serving in Korea and coming back. Were you wounded ever?
No.
Okay.
No.
What about you, Birger? How old were you, and what was your prevailing from your experiences? How it affected the rest of your life?
I was 23 when I was in combat zone, and there were people younger than me, and there were some people that were older than me. In fact, we had one that was a veteran of World War II that was in our, and he was 40 years old.
Really? Why in the world did they call up a 40-year-old gentleman
Well,
back then?
I think he was regular Army, and he was
okay.
in for the retirement. So it was, as far as having any effect in my civilian life, the experiences of the war didn't seem to affect me. I took advantage of the GI Bill and
Good.
and went to college.
And did you get a college degree?
Yes, I did.
Well, congratulations.
And had a professional degree, and that's just something that's in the past.
Right. Dick, what about you?
What was the question again?
How old were you when you went in, and how did your experiences in Korea affect the rest of your life?
I was 22 when I arrived in Korea. And as far as a lasting effect, it really didn't. I didn't experience a lasting effect. I at times had dreams about being sent back, and what I was doing to avoid going into the country. I stayed on in the Army after Korea until 1958, when when I requested relief from active duty and was assigned to a reserve unit in San Francisco. Served with that until 67, when I was recalled with orders to Vietnam. So I had a 6-week delay en route for refresher course at Fort Lee, and then I was headed for the West Coast and a flight to...
So what would you say your experiences, compare and contrast your experience with being in Korea, and did you actually go to Vietnam?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
well, I'd be interested to hear what, do a comparison.
It's like night and day, actually. The differences. In Korea, I was in an infantry division. In Vietnam, I was an advisor to the ordnance chief in for all of Arvanav. Arvanav being Republic of Vietnam Armed Forces.
Mm-hmm.
And there were no similarities.
So between your time in Korea, your reserve time, and your time in Vietnam, is it safe to say you're retired from being
retired.
Army Reserve?
Correct.
Okay, okay. Now some people, I did a program in which I'm pleased to say I won an award from the Alliance for Community Media. I interviewed a year ago, May, Commander Dr. Mark Russell, who was at that time the head of mental health for the Northwest Navy personnel. And some people's battle experiences does lead to post-traumatic stress disorder. And the American Legion, let me pump the American Legion here, has an excellent pamphlet. And I'm sure that every service officer probably would be happy to give you one of these, because we are at war now, and we're clearly having men come back with some issues about the war. Now, let's leave Korea behind and talk about what you've done with your lives since then. Robert, let's start with you real quick.
Well, I did go to college on the GI Bill. I was already in college, actually, when I joined the Marines.
And did you get a degree?
I did. I got a degree in business
Good.
administration, January 26, 1957, from the University of Arkansas.
Okay.
And
tell us about this memorial you're wanting to set up.
I came up with a plan about 3 years ago to have a Bataan Death March memorial in Kitsap County. And we're working on it.
You have a group of other veterans and people helping with that endeavor?
Well, actually, we do. I do. And Mary Dombrowski is one of them.
Oh, our lovely
Not a veteran,
camera
but
woman.
her husband is.
Yes.
And we are forming a foundation right now.
Now, how did you get involved in that? Because clearly you weren't in World War II. Do you know people who suffered with that?
Well, I happened to have a neighbor in 1941 that joined the Army, and he was on the Bataan Death March, and he died in July of 1942 in Cabataton. The prisoners were treated so horribly by the Japanese that that about 37% died in captivity.
Yes, I think most people would say if they had a choice, they'd rather be captured by the Nazis than the
Well,
Japanese.
they had a less than 2% mortality rate among American prisoners in the hands of the Germans, but there were beheadings, there were bayonetings, and just...
now, if someone would like to get involved in this endeavor, do you want to give them a contact number?
Well, I'm in the phone book. Right now we're forming a board, but it has to be somebody that has taken the trouble to acquaint themselves with the issue that we're dealing with and has some expertise of some kind to contribute.
Okay, now Robert Medley is in the Kitsap County phone book. If you'd like to help him with this, give them a call. Now, Birger, what have you been doing? I know that you're a service officer. How long have you belonged to the American Legion, and how long have you been a service officer?
I've been in the American Legion, I think, 22 years, and I became active after my retirement. I attended Washington State University and received a degree in veterinary medicine.
Oh, you became a veterinarian?
Yes.
Oh, well, God bless you on behalf of all those furry creatures I love so much. Yeah, okay.
And I practiced for 36 years and retired, and decided to become active in volunteer work. And so the service officer was available in the Paulsville American Legion, which was fairly new. It was just a new organization.
And there's a lot to learn there, people. I mean, I believe there's really a lot to learn. Of the folks who walk into your service officer, what would you say are the top 2 issues they're dealing with?
We probably see, I can't say, we also, I might also mention that we also do assist veterans and their dependents in the, at the county level with the Soldiers and Sailors Relief.
Yeah, I'm familiar
And
with
a good percentage of these are veterans that
find themselves
need
homeless.
assistance in rental.
Right.
or
Well, we got about
utilities.
1 minute left. Dick, you're the commander. We know you're busy. Give us a quick 1 minute. What have you been doing?
What have I been doing? I retired from Puget Sound Naval Shipyard in 1996. And since then, I haven't had time to do anything because I've been tied up with the American Legion
Good.
in one capacity or another. I've been a member, like Birger, it'll be 22 years in September
Good.
since I joined Post 68.
Listen, this is PJ Scott, your Navy Wave veteran, and yes, I belong to the American Legion. In fact, you're looking at the Woman Veteran of the Year. See you next time.